Greetings, everybody. This is Christopher Messina coming at you as ever from the beaches of the last free state in America, Florida. And I'm joined today by my friend and colleague, David Blackman, coming from what he might think is the last free state in America, Texas. Debate I'm willing to enter into. David,
No, I
thank you
think
so much
we're
for taking
tied. I
time.
think we're tied. Yeah.
We're tied. We're tied. Equal
Yeah.
freedom. Equal freedom. So thank you for coming on today. It is the 28th of May, and I'm actually inviting you on because we're doing these now. I couldn't think of anything more appropriate for a segment called Messy Shorts than to discuss Bill Clinton's old henchman, Al Gore, who apparently was on some morning TV show. And in his comments, he said that renewables, all of this wind and stuff, killing whales, all this great stuff, is the quote unquote cheapest electricity ever. And I
Yeah.
took this from your brilliant writing, so I wanted to toss that over to you first while we hash out how Al Gore could so viciously lie to the world and claim
Oh
that the
my
most
God.
expensive electricity ever is, in fact, the cheapest.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's all he does is lie to the world. He's been doing it for 40 years now. And unfortunately, too many people believe him. Yeah. The statement renewables being the cheapest. Yeah. The cheapest electricity in the history of the world. Really? Cheaper than fire? Cheaper than
Fire.
burning wood? Cheaper than burning coal in the 1600s?
Oh,
I mean, it just well, oh no, I'm sorry, he said electricity, not energy. Yeah.
okay. Cheapest electricity. All right.
Okay, cheapest electricity. Well,
Yeah.
it's the most expensive, as you said. It's the
Yeah.
most costly because when someone like Al Gore tells that lie, they're not including the full cycle costs to society of that generation source. And they just talk about, well, when the wind's blowing during the middle of the day at low demand times and providing maybe 50% of the generation on let's say the Texas grid, which happens some days for a couple hours a day. Well, that's great. And it's very cheap and it flows into the system, for the most part.
Cheap rate
Pretty
cost. Right.
right. And so the rate right then is cheap.
Right.
Okay. But that doesn't even talk about all the socialized costs that go into subsidizing those wind farms and building them out and mining for all the critical minerals they have to have. The average wind
Let's not get
turbine.
harsh on mining here. Let's stay away from mining. That's a sacred cow on the show. No, but
Yeah.
your point is all the
No, no,
real
but
costs go in. The
yeah,
subsidies, the taxes, the government distortions, the rebates to people who have solar panels as opposed to not. All
right.
madness is how he magically contorts himself into claiming for those 2 hours per day, the electricity per kilowatt hour is the cheapest. It's crazy.
Yes, right. That finite piece of the thing
Yeah.
is cheap. But it also doesn't include the other thing they don't ever talk about is the fact that let's take wind again. We'll start with wind. On a good day, a perfect day for wind in West Texas, you're going to get 6 hours of generation. That's basically what the wind's going to blow. Then you got some of it, a tiny portion of it, backed up with lithium ion battery installations that have a 3-hour cycle time. So 6 hours of generation plus 3 hours of battery power, you're 9 hours of the 24-hour day. You've got to have something else generating electricity for the other 15 hours, and that's going to be natural gas, coal, and nuclear. Okay. So for every megawatt, every gigawatt of wind power generation that you install, you're going to have a gigawatt of either natural gas or coal or nuclear installed. So you're paying for two grids. You have the unreliable intermittent grid that you can't predict because most days you don't get 6 hours out of it. And then you have the reliable 24/7 power generation grid that's there when you actually need it. And during weather emergencies, when wind and solar are always the first sources to fall off the grid, you've got that other grid there that's going to keep your lights on and keep you from
That's
freezing
that
to
real.
death
Well, we used to
in
be
the
called the
dark.
base load. They
Right. It's
actually
called,
do its
yeah, we
job.
used to call it
It's
base
called the
load,
base
right?
load.
But I
So,
guess now we can't use that anymore.
so for anyone who wants to hurt their brains by finding the clip of Al Gore with his fawning acolytes on the morning show, God, I'm never going to advertise because I don't know what it is. I don't care. But I did see a clip of it. Now, is it your impression that the five people sitting there and smiling, I call them teleprompter
Yeah.
jockeys, do you think they're just too stupid to ask that question, or they don't
Yeah.
care, or they're bought and sold by the Democrat Party? Like, what's the combination of things that go into what Americans think of as journalists in some way, who would ask a probing question or two
Yeah,
about
maybe.
such a sweeping statement? And they just nodded and smiled. Oh, that's great. Renewables are cheap. It's wonderful. I'm running my car on unicorn farts. I mean, it hurts my brain. And these people are presumably going to vote, some of them twice, in the upcoming election.
Yeah. And worse, they're influencing a lot of voters, right? I don't watch the Today Show. I don't know any of them's names other than Al Roker, the weather guy.
I
And
like it because he used to be fat. And they stopped eating
right,
ribs and he
he
got
lost a
skinny.
lot of
Now he's
weight.
not
Yeah.
funny.
He's got
Now
Ozempic
he
face
looks
now.
weird.
Yeah. He's got Ozempic face going on. But
And for a while, he did
anyway,
a funny show like traveling around the country eating ribs. That's why I remember him.
right.
20 years ago, back when Al was funny. Anyway,
I'm so old, I remember his predecessor, Willard Scott, who was actually a
yeah.
pretty smart guy. Al
Big.
Roker's just kind of a circus clown. But anyway, the other ones, I don't even know their names, don't care.
Don't care.
Not going to do the 10 seconds of Googling it would take to figure
No,
it out.
no.
But yeah, there's some combination of bought and sold or too stupid to understand, and probably a combination of that.
Yeah.
And because they're at a legacy media outlet that's, a part of the propaganda wing of the Democratic Party. And we all know that's true. And so, when you see Al Gore on that show, all he's going to get is just like if they had Biden on. He's going to get pre-approved softball questions that he has a scripted
Softballs.
answer for. And that's what that was. And you can, if people want to see the clip, I pasted it into my post on Substack at blackman.substack. Free advertising here on your podcast.
That's why
I
we have you
appreciate
here.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's there for anybody to see, and you can judge it for yourself. I even did a transcript of it just because I have a lot of subscribers who are old like me
Oh,
who prefer
God,
to
see
read
this
stuff.
madness, right? Here's the question that we all wrestle with, right? Is that we've gone through the censorship wars where the woke left, big tech, managed to squash voices like yours and mine forever until Elon
Yeah.
broke that cabal.
Elon, thank God for
And then
Elon
God
Musk.
bless Substack for setting up, right? And ignoring all their calls of, be careful about misinformation, blah, 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 nonsense. As I tell my children, there's no such thing as the word disinformation, misinformation are words that literally do not exist. What they mean are truths or facts that Democrats don't want you to hear. We
Right.
used to have things called lies, truth, facts, and opinion. Those are the four categories. And we still have those four categories. And the reason that the left does not use those categories is because misinformation and disinformation are such wonderful weasel words
Yes.
that they don't
Yeah.
have to claim what you're saying is a lie because they can be called out on that.
Right.
Right?
And they're
So
they're
they
malleable
invented all new
concepts, right?
words.
Yeah, they're malleable too because
Yeah,
they can mean different things at different times to different people,
you
and they
bet.
can continue constantly change the definition of them so that they can just focus on whatever they want to focus on at any given point in time. So
Amen.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what I'm trying always to get across to a broader audience. And that's the entire goal of what I do. It's a big chunk of what you're doing for your community. Like, how do we break down what they depend upon to be incredibly complex topics so that
yeah,
you can know with assurance why AlGore is lying to you, right? The same man who's like so worried about carbon, and I love that journalist years ago. I can't remember his name, who got public county records of his sprawling like 50,000 square foot mansion
oh
and
yeah, yeah,
calculated his carbon footprint in relation to a normal Americans, right? Never mind flying Air Force Two all the time, right? Just the Gore family was like 7,000 American average families. Um, and then he created some know nothing useless television station or cable station that the Qatari government, who gives hundreds of millions of dollars to Hamas every year and makes all their
right,
money on natural gas, bought from him for like $800 million or something. But again, that was no problem. That was like Hunter becoming a famous artist selling paintings for $3 million a pop, right? It's all the same nonsense. But it's Messy Shorts. I want to be quick. What is the main thing you tell people about this particular pack of Al Gore's Messy Shorts, about this lie, and why does he keep perpetuating? He got his payout. He's old. He's retired. He got his prize for the stupid movie. Why do you think he still bothers?
I think it's ego. I think it has to be ego driven at this point, because you're right. I mean, he's worth 300, $400 million on the carbon credit trading system that he invented and then profited from, based on all the propaganda he spewed out, after Hurricane Katrina.
He's a great
Yeah, it's
market maker.
pure genius. I mean, really, he is a marketing genius. But the thing to know about Al Gore, folks, is if his lips are moving, he's lying. And that's it. I mean, that's all you need to know. It's just, he's a joke to any thinking person on any of this, who people just ignore these days. And I think it's really harms his ego when he goes to a place like the WEF, in Davos each January. And this year he wasn't even invited to speak for the first time in a long time.
That's so sad.
Yeah. And so
Silly
I think
face, Al Gore.
right.
It's too bad. You gotta get an
but the
emoji.
he's like 72 years old. I think he's old enough to kind of take it easy, isn't he? I mean, he's with all that money and all the
You'd
homes
think
he
so.
owns. And he's
It's
another
funny.
one of these people, these prophets of climate alarmism, who's bought a house on the coast, at zero sea level.
He's so worried.
Yeah, yeah, right. So worried.
So
He's got
worried
a $12 million
rising sea
home right
levels.
there on the beach. So yeah.
Well, that's probably, you're spot on. He is one more idiot who has refuted the truth that Golda Meir put so beautifully years ago, when someone told her about, like, she did this next thing and during one of the wars that she'd lose, and she looked at him and said, every political career ends in failure.
Yeah, pretty
Just
much.
truth. Failure or death.
Yeah.
Like, no one stays on top forever.
Well, that's right.
Sadly,
Yeah.
Al Gore, we were still shackled with him. I was blown away to find him there on that clip. Good job finding it. Thank you for helping elucidate for my listeners this particular bit of complete insanity about renewables being cheaper. Never mind, 10 times more expensive than killing whales.
Oh my God.
David, I'll give a big shout out to you in the comments below, and to my normal listeners, regular listeners, whoever you are. Please turn off the mainstream media, who we've just proven once again are lying to you, and tune into Messy Times.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.